Now, let me ask you a question. How many unarmed black people, on average, are killed by police a year?
Well, I'd have to look up that statistic.
Guess.
Probably over 50%.
Yeah, it's 15 people a year.
All right. Looks like we've got a classic example of what happens when an ideologically programmed college student runs headfirst into facts, logic, and reality. Brought to you, of course, by Charlie Kirk. This is a perfect case study in how the mainstream narrative conditions young people to accept certain ideas without ever questioning them. And when those ideas get challenged, well, let's just say it doesn't end well for them. Let's get into this debate between Charlie Kirk and this college student.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Andrew. All right.
You have a question, right? Or you do?
So I wanted to talk with you about, again, the 1350.
Yeah. If you
So
disagree, come on up.
earlier I did chime in when you were talking with Jackson. You said 2020 with the George Floyd protests that nobody was talking about the nuclear family, which I think that they're separate issues.
Okay, but that's fine. But can you first acknowledge that no one was talking about the nuclear family?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, great. Why do you think that no one ever talks about the nuclear family at all publicly?
Maybe a lack of importance. And I mean, obviously, it's very important that you have a father and a mother growing up. That's very crucial to childhood.
We agree.
Yes. But to get to my point, in 2020 with the George Floyd protests,
Riots.
riots or protests, depends.
Were they riots or protests?
All right. Well, we disagree on that, but to get to my point,
Sure. Were they mostly peaceful?
I believe so. Yes.
Please let Andrew talk. Let Andrew talk. It takes a lot of courage to come up. I'm going to defend you. Please
No, it's
continue.
okay. People can disagree, but I just like to get my point off. So I think police brutality and the nuclear family are two separate issues. Okay. So
Hold up, this is a classic deflection. Charlie Kirk is making a crucial point about how the breakdown of the nuclear family leads to higher crime rates, which in turn creates more police interactions. But instead of engaging with that, Andrew wants to compartmentalize it and pretend they're unrelated. Yeah, no. That's like saying smoking and lung cancer are two separate issues. One directly influences the other.
I think that there's over policing in black neighborhoods. Would you agree?
Not even close. Under policing, actually. And don't take my word for it. Again, like half of all murders in Chicago aren't even solved. That's bad, right?
Okay, but that's Chicago. Okay.
Well, but again, about only 60% in Baltimore are solved. It's across the country. But Chicago is America's third largest city, New York, LA, Chicago. Let's just pause right here. In order to solve murders, you need detectives, which are police officers. So we should agree that if you commit a murder, we should find out who it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So half of all murders are not solved. You can fact check me on this. Chicago murder solve rate 50%. You guys can all fact check me on this. So should we need more police then?
I never said I disagree about defunding the police.
No, but you said over policed. I don't think we have enough. So show me an example. Show me a city where we have too many police and be specific.
Well, I can't come up with any specific example.
Well, but you said that we're over policed. You got to give me some specifics. It can't be an abstraction. You got to tell me the city in America that is over policed because I'd be interested to know about that city.
Well, like I said, I don't have any specific examples, but I'm going to pivot.
Because it doesn't exist, though.
I'm going to pivot really quick, if that's okay.
Before you pivot, I just want to just teach you something, Andrew. It's easy to say that you're over-policed. You got to back up the data. There's no incident in the country of any city that's over-policed. It does not exist. We have a police staffing shortage in this country. We don't have enough police, but please pivot.
Okay. So to get back, to get back to my point, I think police brutality and the culture, black culture, is two separate things. I think police officers kneeling on someone's neck for 9 minutes is a completely separate incident.
What was George Floyd's cause of death?
Asphyxiation.
Actually, the original medical report by the Hennepin County Examiner said that it was a drug overdose. Did you know that?
But that was hired by the state. an independent coroner reported
It's
that it was
interesting. You
asphyxiation.
might be right, but if you guys love truth, you should go and dive into the Derek Chauvin court documents. There's a lot more to the George Floyd situation than anyone ever told you. It really is, and it's a great video. And I'm not even, you might be right, but there's so much more to that circumstance of George Floyd that was overdosing on drugs, right? That also, did you know that what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd was actually in the police manual training? It was completely justified and was trained by his superiors to do. Now, let me ask you a question. How many unarmed black people, on average, are killed by police a year?
Well, I'd have to look up that statistic.
Guess.
Probably over 50%.
Yeah, it's 15 people a year. 15. And that's not my number. That's the Washington Post that came up with it and did a national crime survey. And they even were generous and they said unarmed, meaning you had a weapon nearby or you had a knife that you dropped. So you're talking about police brutality for an incident that happens 15 times a year in a country of 350 million people.
Well, how come, my question to you then, how come you see it so often on
You don't.
social
Because
media?
you're being, that's a good question, Andrew, because you're being propagandized.
All right, so that right there is the moment Andrew realizes he's been fed a carefully curated diet of selective outrage. I don't know about you guys, but it's wild how social media can make you believe something is happening all the time when in reality it's barely a statistical blip. The fact that Charlie Kirk can just pull the actual numbers and dismantle the hysteria in real time is exactly why conversations like this are so important.
You're being brainwashed is the name of this tour. And I'm here to tell you that you see it, so you actually don't see it as often as you think. This is emotional targeted videoing to have you think that something exists when it doesn't. We look at the data like, oh, it's 15 times a year. 15 times a year, and it's even lower than that. But do you know what does happen a lot every single year? Is that there's over 100,000 drug overdoses every single year. We don't talk about that. We don't.
should.
You know, we should. I totally agree, right? But yet we have this whole thing about police brutality, and no one can ever give me examples where there's too many police, and that's okay. I'm not just picking on you. Just in general, it's easy to get caught up in the abstractions. It's easy to get caught up in the parade and in all the bedlam. But when you dive into it, you realize that it's all brainwashing and it's propaganda.
I guess what I would say in response to that is when you do your own independent research, you can find data to skew in any direction you want it to.
But it's the Washington Post. I'm not just making this stuff up. This is the left. I'm using left-wing sources here. This is not Breitbart.com or Gateway Pundit or the Charlie Kirk Show or Daily Wire, right? This is the left-wing sources, and I'm not cherry picking because you said police brutality. So then I pinpoint, okay, how many black people are then killed unarmed by police every year? Boom, that's the number. In a population, by the way, where there's tens of millions of black Americans, it's an insignificant sum. And you know that more kids are killed in urban violence going to school or walking to the playground than blacks are killed by police? Yet we don't talk about that as much. The question then is why? Is that here's my belief, is that black America is so abused by the current mainstream media, it's abused by the Democrat Party, and they don't want black Americans to think freely or independently that they have been used as pawns by the Democrat Party for the last 60 years.
And there it is, the uncomfortable truth. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that makes people squirm because it forces them to confront the reality that narratives are crafted for political purposes. Charlie Kirk is exposing the playbook, and you can almost feel Andrew short-circuiting at the thought that maybe, just maybe, he's been manipulated.
That's exactly what is happening right now, and I pray people are starting to wake up. A final thought, Andrew?
I guess I don't really have anything.
That's okay. I encourage you to do this. Fact check me later. Find out what the unsolved murder rate is in Chicago. See if Charlie Kirk was right. Look at the Washington Post crime database and find out, was it really 15 unarmed blacks that were killed by police year by year? Sometimes as low as 8, sometimes it's 20, so the average is about 15, okay? Go and look at The Biggest Lie Ever Told, the George Floyd documentary. Go look at the original Hennepin County medical. Don't just take my word for it. Do that research. And in that research, if you're like, oh, dang, I was lied, use that as what we call taking the red pill. And you'll see how deep this rabbit hole goes.
100%.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Can I shake your hand?
Yeah, God bless, man. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Give it up for Andrew. That's not easy to do.
So, I mean, yeah. This was a masterclass in how to absolutely dismantle mainstream talking points with actual data. Charlie Kirk didn't just win this debate. He exposed the entire problem with how these students are conditioned to think. They're given talking points but no depth. And when you strip those talking points away, there's nothing left. Andrew came in with confidence, but by the end, he had nothing. And that, my friends, is what waking up looks like.